Great. Today is Wednesday, January 4th. It is 5:30 p.m. and I'm calling this meeting to order. First item is Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, next item is roll call. Liam, do you mind calling the roll?
Sure. Counselor Seither,
Here.
Counselor Clucci.
Here.
Counselor Shoup,
Here.
Counselor Katerina,
Here.
Counselor Hamel. Here. Counselor McGee
Here.
and Chair Anderson.
Here. All right, next item is order number 23-001. Act on the request for an executive session pursuant to Title 405.6A for consideration of appointees to the town's various committees boards. Do I need to get a motion?
So moved.
All right, all those in favor? All right, it's unanimous. All right, so we will be back at 7 o'clock.
Good. We're going this way. Okay.
Thank you for doing the roll call.
We are back from executive session, so we're going to pick up where we left off. Next item is item number 4, general public comment. Is there anybody from the public who would like to comment on anything that's not on the agenda? Looking in the audience, is there anybody? All right, I think we have somebody coming up. And is there anybody online? If you do, please raise your hand. Great, Mr. Gates, if you could please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name's Marvin Gates. I live at 423 Black Point Road. And I don't think what I'm wanting to talk about is on the agenda, although it may be construed as being somewhere close to being on the agenda insofar as and interrupt me. I'm here to speak about the council liaisons on not obviously council committees, but on the committee that I sit on, long range planning. And as I was reviewing the appointments and negotiations committee, as a lot of us have been over the course of the last month and that sort of thing, one of the incoming council liaisons to the long range planning made a statement at the December 5th appointments and negotiations committee. And this is not about appointments to committees, I promise you that. But the statement by the council liaison was, I sat in on the last long range planning committee meeting on December 2nd. You know, there's a number of members who don't really understand how the comp plan interacts with our zoning, the GMO, and other things we might have. And obviously you're considering appointments. And as a voting member of the committee, I thought, well, who are they? Who's he? What? It sounds disparaging to me. And I suppose the bottom line, if I'm making sense, is, and the same council liaison said later to one of his fellow councilors regarding a matter that they were discussing having to do with appointments, quote, but you should be specific when you were casting allegations. And I felt as though that by saying there are a number of members who don't really understand how the comp plan interacts on the long range planning committee, whose job is to write the comp plan, I thought that was a kind of allegation that didn't, for me as a voting member of the long range planning committee, make me feel as though, you know, we're volunteers. So I would like to ask, and I would like to, I might just stop there. And say that in order for people to find good candidates, in order for you to find good candidates, I think it's great things are aired in public. I'd only ask perhaps at the Long Range Planning Committee meeting this Friday, for the council liaison to be more specific and say who the people are who don't really understand how the comp plan interacts with the GMO. But more broadly speaking, think about the community members who you're asking to devote their time to these committees. Be very honest about what you think of them. But as you're seeking members to sit on these committees, do understand that we are putting in our absolute best effort, time, and talent to provide you with the information you seek. And so I'll stop there. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Gates. Is there any counselors who would like to respond to the comments? Yep, Counselor Pucci.
So it's no secret, I'm the new liaison to long range planning and made some of the comments that were referenced. I think some context is probably appropriate. They were made in rebut to some motions to remove some very long-standing members from the committee. And I was trying to point out in a very not thoughtful way that we need some experience on these committees. There's people that have, there's a lot of new people coming through, which is great, but we also need some people with institutional knowledge. And that was, I wasn't trying to be disparaging, and I apologize if it came off like that. I was not prepared at that meeting to be discussing appointments at all. It was supposed to be a meeting about how we're going to be doing appointments in the next year. So, and it kind of the agenda got changed on the spot. And I think I found myself in a position that was extremely uncomfortable. And I have not watched the meeting, but I know that I was not at my best in any way, shape, or form. So for that, I apologize.
All right, is there any other public comment for things that aren't on the agenda? I'm not seeing any hands raised, so I'm going to close public comment. Next item is item number 5, minutes from the December 21st, 2022 Town Council meeting. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? No? All those in favor? All right, it looks like it's unanimous. Next is item 6, adjustments to the agenda. I don't think there are any items to adjust tonight. No. Item 7, items to be signed, treasurer's warrants. I just signed those and provided those to Cody. Item number 8 is town manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just 2 quick items. The council and the public may recall back in mid-November, I delivered some, I think, very good news to the council that I was successful in hiring a new finance director. Well, Mr. Norman Kildow is here in the flesh. He's in the dark back there. Norman, stand up. I think you can certainly approach the podium if you like. He's hard to miss. But just to recap on Norman's experience, very pleased to have him on board here. We're part of the senior staff. Norman comes to us with a significant private sector experience in the areas of accounting and auditing. And for 18 years, he's been with the city of Tulsa in kind of progressively responsible positions, the last 5 years of which has been the controller for the city. He comes to us with an MBA, is a certified public accountant and a certified public finance officer. So very pleased to have Norman and his wife and 2 children, hopefully residing in Scarborough soon. So welcome aboard. And I don't know if you have any words to the public. Don't feel obligated, but
no, that's fine. I was prepared to make a few remarks. Yeah. I like to take tests. So that's the reason for the certifications. We are excited to be here as a family. The family is back in Tulsa presently, wrapping up, getting the house prepared for sale and some theatrical performances for one of the children that are going to happen this weekend. But as soon as those are over, they will join us up here in Maine, and we're excited to be a part of the community and be a part of the school. And I look forward to working with all of you and thank you for hiring me.
Yeah, welcome.
thanks, Norman. You're noticing a trend. We have some Southern drawl or Texas and Oklahoma drawl coming this way. All good stuff for sure. I don't want to steal the council chair's thunder. I expect he'll speak to the goal setting session the council has set for itself between now and its next meeting. So maybe that's just a prompt to cover that. I just want to provide a quick update on what I'll call the Christmas weekend storm. We really had some wild weather. It was kind of the perfect setup. We had high tide at mid-morning. So really the storm surge and the high winds really caused some fairly widespread power outages. Most of them were recovered pretty quickly, but there were a couple of pockets that were out of power through the weekend, unfortunately. We did have downed trees and limbs. Luckily, it happened on a work day during the daylight hours, so it was fairly easy to identify and attend to in a safer situation for staff. We did have almost unprecedented flooding, particularly on Route 1, Pine Point Road at the Audubon Center, and also down closer to Ken's, Payne Road, and of course Sawyer Street, which is a perennial flooding scenario. We did put up a kind of a makeshift emergency shelter at the Public Safety Building for about a 36-hour period. We had one family that stayed for a bit and then made other arrangements. And from a damage point of view, we really fared fairly well. I think there was some private property damage. The Eastern Trail probably suffered the worst damage, and this is in the area of the crossing of the marsh. The water, I sat right on Route 1 and saw whitecaps crossing Route 1, so I can only imagine the wave condition down at the Eastern Trail. But there was some fairly severe erosion, so much so the Unitil underground gas line was exposed. I guess the good news with that, Unitil wanted to secure their interest, and so they came in and made very quick and inappropriate repairs and provided restoration and full repair to that stretch of the trail. The cliff walk also sustained some damage. I know that only secondhand. I'm going to get down myself or have staff go and assess it. And I think at the suggestion of council chair, it might be an opportunity to extend an offer to the Prouds Neck Improvement Association to provide some assistance. Again, I hesitate just not knowing the full extent of the damage and what needs to be done to put that back in a serviceable condition. But at this point, the cliff walk is closed until that situation can be assessed and remedied. So that I'm certainly available for questions.
Any questions for Tom? No?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. All right, next item is item 9, non-action item, update on the comprehensive plan from the town planner.
Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year to you all. I'm happy to have Norman from Oklahoma here as well. It makes me feel a little better about myself. The comprehensive plan implementation, this will be a brief presentation, just an overview of how the comp plan came about and then where we are in the process and where we can go moving forward. The next slide, Liam. I'm going to do a pin thing. Okay, so in 2006, you all had the comprehensive plan, and then it was not updated later, adopted until 2021. This slide is from the comprehensive plan process, and it's a great slide that shows you the public input and the process overall from 2017 to get you to the 2021 adoption, and then to where we are now, which is the implementation phase. So the plan, it outlines the vision for the community. So it's built upon the boards, the commissions that you have in place, the community, the citizens, the schools, the council. And so it outlines this vision of what Scarborough will be. It provides the plan for future development and conservation. It gives you strategies for sustainability and recommends implementation steps. And again, that's where we are now in that implementation of the plan. It's also your foundation for public policy and any land use decisions when they come before you, contract zones, zoning changes of those sorts. And it's a framework for your public investment and private development. So this, I also borrowed this from a previous planning presentation, but this is a really good, just high level look of how the comp plan really does guide everything around the town's needs, and it just funnels out and then it funnels back in. So everything feeds it and then it feeds, and it's just this living document that we can use in all of our decision making, and then we can really use with all of our interactions with developers, private, public, state, and different boards and commissions. And again, this is just the future land use map. This is a creation from the comp plan, and this designates your growth areas, your conservation areas, rural preservation, and then where you really want to target things as they come into Scarborough. So there's 5 vision statements. I won't read those to you, but they're essentially protect the marsh, make good decisions for municipal services and extensions of those services, support your existing neighborhoods. I think this is an important one not to forget. The economy is going to be based on a broad assortment of things, not just one focus. And then the transportation network is really going to be focused on to make sure that it's efficient and we're using all modes of transportation. And again, there's strategy statements to go with this. So the comp plan is this very high level. You get your goals, your strategy statements, and these are the things that funnel down into the implementation where we are now. But it gets a little more specific. The one that I really, I think your zoning maps and your comp plan work really well together, and there's some strategy statements that are really strong. And I think these, it's a good place to be as a planner. I think you have a really good framework set up with these things. I think some very strong planning work was done from 2006 to 2021 to get you to where you are. And I appreciate that from a professional standpoint. And I think it makes your implementation moving forward a lot easier. So these are guiding principles that were defined through the public outreach and the implementation process. And these are just, you know, those words that describe Scarborough, that everyone agreed that this was our principles and what we wanted to be. And I think these are important to remember as you go through and you make decisions about the community. So per the plan, there's some implementation steps. And essentially you all, the town council, you guide and you monitor the plan, and that's your role. The Long Range Planning Committee oversees the implementation, suggests amendments to zoning ordinances and other land use regulations. And then the other town committees and the department heads, department staff and groups provide input and put forth work to go into it. Current work from the action plan where we are now, so fall 2021, the Long Range Planning Committee worked within themselves to assign tasks to the various departments. And so they took this very extensive list of things to do and said, you know, Conservation Commission will do this one, the Planning Board will do this one, and so on. And then the spring of 2022, the Long Range Planning Committee prioritized their own task. And this is the committee that I'm very personally involved with. So I came in and they had already done this work, which was fantastic. And now we are working through those tasks. So we've taken the top 6 and we're starting that work to implement those things. So these are all just, it's important to remember how many groups that we have that work, boards and committees. And I know you all know this, but this is just a good reminder of there's a lot of really great groups and a lot of expertise and a lot of knowledge out there that I think we can really take advantage to implement the comp plan. So what's missing? Opportunities for improvement. What I have seen since I've been here, a lot of the committees are wanting to know and wanting to hear from the town council about your priorities and that top-down sort of approach. So they've all got this spreadsheet with implementation goals and tasks, but I think they really want to know which ones are the top priority. And so I think that is very important moving forward. And then the collaboration among the groups, I think, and that's happening because they're not very clear on what goals they're wanting to work on. So some of the groups are working in silos. Some groups could be working on projects that contradict other groups. And so I think it's important to make sure that that doesn't occur. And then this year-end annual summary, this is an idea I think that we could create to have some metrics in place to recognize the progress that we've made throughout the year and where we want to go, and make sure that we're still aligned with those goals that we started from. So that those are some opportunities for improvement. And so these are some steps that I think would help us get there. Just you all setting priorities. I know you have your goal setting meeting coming up. And I think just setting those top level priorities and funneling that down. And then myself working with the staff liaisons for the other committees and boards So maybe at the beginning of the year, maybe there's a different process, but really going in and helping the groups identify what task they can work on that year and feel good about it. I know that it's a struggle when you feel like you put a lot of work into it, but it's just a continual work. You don't see the ordinance or the progress. So I think I can help in that manner. And I think the benefit of that is the ordinance committee knows what's coming. So you have that workload planned a little bit. You know what can come down the pipe, and then town council knows what to expect. And so setting the goals and funneling those down, I think, are some ideas that would really help implement the comp plan in a much more efficient manner. And then again, that year-end report, so we can know where we are at the end of the year. So these are just some ideas and some steps and things that I've seen and where we are with implementation today. And that's all I have for you tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So any questions for Autumn? Counselor Hamel?
Yeah, quick one, Autumn. Can you give us an update on the status of the state's approval of our comp plan?
I can. We're still waiting on state's approval of the comp plan. Karen Martin reached out. She reaches out on a regular basis and we continually we're getting to it. They had some work that was due for the legislature this particular week. So we're told again, we're next in line, but we're still waiting.
Thanks. And I had one quick follow-up. So, there's an old saying that plans change upon implementation, that they need to be adapted and improvised to overcome obstacles. Tom mentioned the fact that we might be renaming Route 1 Subterranean Marsh Highway. So, in view of the things that are emerging, not only environmentally, but also socially, is there an opportunity to revise the plan as we implement? Because it seems to me that maybe the priorities are shifting and that maybe we need to spend less time on development and more time on the health and sustainability and conservation of our resources.
I think that the way that your plan is written now, it's very broad in its goals, and the implementation is where you get specific. And I think you have an excellent opportunity, at beginning of every year, quarter, however you choose to do it, re-looking at those priorities for the community and trickling those down. The framework is there to do that very easily.
Thanks. Thank you.
So the reason why I asked Autumn to come and just share this with us is because we are working right now on thinking through goals, and we have the comp plan that has a lot of great items for consideration. So what's really nice, Autumn, what you shared when you showed that bubble that showed all the different things the comp plan addresses, it's pretty much one-to-one what I've asked each counselor as we've split up goal areas to explore for people to look at. So my ask for you would be if you could just send the spreadsheet you've referenced that has gone to different committees, just as like another resource for the counselors to look at.
Sure.
To see if that impacts what you may want to bring forward as recommendations for goals. Because I think the more we have alignment between the comp plan and our goals, to Autumn's point, we can get more specific so that if climate change or issues related to climate change or something we as a council feel strongly about, what are the right things in our comp plan we want to really focus on, highlight and double down on, and work with the committees to solve, because we have all these committees who are positioned to kind of advise the council on different solutions. So I just hope everybody can get that as a input and review it before the meeting. And it's great if you can be there for our goals meeting just to hear the conversation or watch it. I don't want to ask her to come in on the weekend. That's your call, but I think it'll just be good for you to hear the minds of the council, given that you're going to be taking a lot of that to bring it to the committees and staff liaisons.
I can definitely give you those we have them divided out per group, the spreadsheet. So
Yeah.
it's actually really helpful.
I think that'll be helpful. Great. Any other comments for Autumn? No? All right. Thank you, Autumn.
Thank you.
All right, next item, moving on to public hearings, is order number 23-002, 7:00 PM, public hearing and action on the new request for a food handler's license and liquor license for Main Life Care Community, Inc., The Meadows, Piper Shores, located at 15 Piper Road. Jody, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, the applications are in order, and if approved, the licenses will be issued once they receive the occupancy permit, and the applicants are here if they
Right.
do have any questions for them.
Right, is there anything the applicants would like to share during public comment, or anybody from the public who would like to comment on this? No. All right. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? No? Okay, all those in favor? All right, it's unanimous. Moving on to old business, next is order number 22-102. Second reading on the proposed new subsection to chapter 405, the Town of Scarborough zoning ordinance, section 11, off-street parking regulations, L electric vehicle charging infrastructure. Tom, I don't know if this was something you wanted to set up or if somebody from the sustainability committee is here.
Autumn's here. I think
Oh,
she can probably do a fine job to tee it up, although this does seem to have been around for quite a while. I'm not
This
sure how
one-
much introduction it needs at this point.
This one has been around for quite a while. I just wanted to bring your attention to a revision that was proposed by the planning board. It's in your minutes. And it's a simple revision, really. There's one to eliminate section 5.4. 5.4 has to do with that EV charging spaces can only be used for EV cars, and the town does not have the capability to enforce that nor the desire to. So we wanted to strike that. And then there's also provision to add some language to 5.2.4 to clarify operation hours of the chargers and a phone number for public assistance, that it be placed in a prominent place so it doesn't get buried in snow. So those two changes were recommended. I just wanted to bring those up to you.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody from the public who would like to comment on this item? No. All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Counselor McGee.
So I've really struggled with this one, and I kept asking myself why, because sometimes you just get this feeling when, one, it's a meaty ordinance, it's a lot here to try to take in and absorb. So that's the first thing that kind of makes you uncomfortable, is like, what am I missing, or what is in here that I don't want to get caught off by? So I want to say, I just want to preface this by saying, I do appreciate the initiative, the forethought that's going into this, and the appetite to try to help what we know is a changing environment. So, but deep down on a philosophical level, I'm a little bit bothered by this, and I'll tell you why. We have a private company making private products, selling it to the people for a profit, and we are now putting an ordinance in place and pushing off the use of those products, or the improvement of the use of those products onto our business owners. They are going to bear the brunt of implementing this infrastructure, the cost to implement it, and the maintenance of it. Now, when I look at how that's working, it's actually counterintuitive to how we got here with regular vehicles, but with the gasoline vehicles, there was private investment. Manufacturers of those vehicles wanted those gas stations available because that meant their product could be used more frequently and more likely. So on a philosophical level, I'm really struggling with how we're going upon this implementation, and the burden is on our business owners. Technically looking at this, I think my bigger concern here is some of the fees, the in lieu fees that would be assessed. So for example, I did the math on, you had a 30-unit motel in town and wanted to repave your parking lot because you've got a lot of potholes. They could either install all of their EV chargers according to the table as required, or have them EV capable or EV ready. Or I think the math I came up with, it was akin to, I think it was like $48,000 in lieu fees. That's not something I think a small business owner has. So you say, okay, well then put them in. And I think that's what worries me, is I can get behind having any parking lots in the area made ready for a conduit, have the conduit, ask any new construction that's going in now to ask an existing business owner, which I already know asphalt work is incredibly expensive, to either place these in lieu fees as part of this, or have them install this into an existing business. And I can think of a handful of existing businesses, such as banks, where I don't think level 2 chargers anyone's going to be using. You don't spend more than a half hour at a bank, let alone 3 hours. So I have concerns about it. I understand the thought. I appreciate the effort. But I'm just not, I'm not convinced this is the right way. I guess personally, I would have rather seen an approach where some sort of fund would have been established to help business owners make the decision to make the leap to provide these spaces. I have other concerns such as the loss of parking spaces. I know planning board has just recommended that if there's an EV charger there, that anyone can use it. That's counterintuitive. I mean, I'm not sure how it's going to help everyone if there's just a bunch of gas vehicles parked in electric charging spots. I'm not sure that helps. And I also don't think our ordinances reflect the current use on our parking lots for restaurants and bars in town. So if you remove some of those parking stalls for specifically EV charging, I worry what that does for overflow onto our roadways and public safety. Anyways, that was very long-winded. Thank you for hearing me out. Like I said, I was really having a hard time trying to summarize why this wasn't sitting well. And I tried to capture some of it for you all here tonight. So thanks for listening.
Counselor Fucci.
So I'm going to echo a lot of that. As a small business owner, my head spins when I look at ordinances like this, because it's not just this one parking ordinance. If I'm trying to do something, I have to understand like encyclopedias worth of stuff, or hire a ton of people that I can't afford to hire to do something. So philosophically, I'm opposed. This has gone through so many different committees and boards. I'm going to vote for it. But I hate it and it makes my head spin. I hate parking regulations, period. I don't think we're very good at them. I think we cause more damage by trying to fix it, but that's for another day.
Any other counselor comments? Counselor Hamel?
Yeah, I was probably one of the people responsible for this taking so long to get here. And the committee, man, they really, Jimmy Fitch and company deserve a medal for just sticking with it. So, we've asked these questions along the way, and the point was they are just based upon what's happening with production of vehicles. It looks like people are making a big move in this direction. That said, there are going to be, back to my earlier comment about plans change upon implementation, and this is obviously going to get changed. There will be pushback from developers, there will be pushback from customers. There's a question about whether or not the batteries work very well in cold climates. So, we used to be a cold climate. So, if we, get cold weather again, that's going to be an issue. So, there are going to be issues with this. So I expect that this is not the last version you're going to see of this ordinance.
Counselor Scyther?
I think one of the things that I hear kind of as a recurring theme sometimes for us as a council and then larger at the town level is that we're not out ahead of things. And that there's this kind of desire for the council and for our committees to work towards putting something so that we are out ahead of some of these big changes, rather than trying to play catch up and implement a bunch of ordinances after the fact or figure out our fee structure after the fact. And so I also am going to support this tonight with the understanding that we never get it right on the first try. But that I really sincerely appreciate our efforts and everyone's combined efforts to get out ahead of this. Because I do think that EV vehicles are coming, and I appreciate that we're not going to be trying to play catch up on this one.
Any other counselor comments? No. So I will add, I'm going to support this tonight. I hear the concerns about small businesses. But again, I think when it comes to looking at this and thinking of values and my philosophy, in my opinion, more similar to what Counselor Scyther said, I think we have to take some action, especially around climate change. And that's going to be tough as we address that as a community. Like, there will be winners and there'll be losers, and there will be people that are unhappy about some of the decisions we have to make. And so, at least for this, as it stands, I think it's progress. It's not perfect. And so I think if we were to try and get perfection, it might never come. And it's already been through 2 years of a lot of work to try and get it there. So I feel like we have a good start. I see this similar to like marijuana, where it's a new thing. It was new to the council. A lot of people didn't know what to do. I think this is kind of similar, where it's a new industry. We're making some assumptions about the future. So I think we have to be open to revisiting it in ordinance in the future to see if there are tweaks as we learn more. It's likely what we have today, like Councilor Hamel said, but it will change probably within the next 6 months, if not more. I'm sure we'll learn something that might require an adjustment in ordinance. So at least for tonight, I'm supportive of moving it forward. All right, any other comments?
Not a comment, but I'd like to make a motion to adopt the changes suggested by the planning board. Have we already done that? No, okay. Yes, do I need to be specific?
If you don't mind for the public,
No.
if you can find it, or do we have it?
Is 2 point, oh, no. Okay, so we recommend a motion to strike section 5.4 charging and parking. And 5.2.4, there was a change.
It's clarifying language, that operation hours of chargers and a phone number for public assistance. It'll be placed in a prominent position at space.
I'll move that.
All right.
Second.
Second, all right, any discussion? No. All those in favor of the amendment? All right, now back to the main motion as amended. Any more discussion? Counselor Hamel?
It's the fastest real-time edit we've ever.
Yeah, good job.
It's almost short.
All right, so now voting on the main motion as amended. All those in favor? All right, I'm seeing 6 yeas. All those not in favor? Opposed? That was the first time I had to do that. One opposed. All right. Moving on to order number 22-103, second reading on the proposed amendment to chapter 405, the Town of Scarborough zoning ordinance, section 2 zoning ordinance D conformity. Tom or Autumn, is there anything you guys want to add to set this up? This has also been before the council a few times.
No, not unless you need
Nope.
further clarification.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? No. Is there anybody in the public who would like to comment on this? No. All right, all those in favor? It's unanimous. Next item is order number 22-104, second reading on the proposed amendments to chapter 405B, the Town of Scarborough Site Plan Review Ordinance to applicability B, activities exempt from site plan review. Again, this is something that's gone through public hearing and multiple discussions at the council level. So I don't think there's a need to set it up at this point. So can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Excuse me.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor? All right, it's unanimous. Okay, moving on to new business. Next is order number 23-003. Act on the names that were posted to the various committees boards as recommended by the Appointments Negotiations Committee at the December 21st, 2022 Town Council meeting. I'm going to open this one up to the public. Is there anybody in the public who would like to comment on this action item? All right. If you could just please state your name and your address for the record.
Sure. Leroy Crockett, 17 Imperial Lane, Scarborough, Maine. I also wanted to say great job with your opening comments at the public comment. We are all volunteers. And I think that's great that you made those statements. So it's a really good thing. I do agree with you on a lot of it. Tody actually reminded me today that I've been volunteering or doing something for the town for almost 30 years. And so I will read my statement. I wanted to take a moment to thank the council and thank all of you for serving our community. I've lived here my entire life for 53 years, so I really appreciate everything you do. And you're making the community better. For voting for planning board and the town council instead of going back to the committee. I think it does belong here after everything that's transpired. I've watched the last few appointments and negotiation committee meetings along with the town council meetings. Heard councilors comment that above all applicants should be treated with respect and dignity and applications should be worked on quickly when they come in. I do not feel that I was treated in that manner as my application sat in committee since September with no action, even though I was the first to apply for the position of planning board alternate that came up in October. I feel as though my qualifications were not given the merit that they should have been given. I applaud Councilor McGee for wanting to get a transparent look at all the applications, not just those that have been recommended by the committee. I believe Tody had also said that you used to do interviews with folks that were applying for committees. I think that might be a good place to go back to, so you can get the full knowledge of who's actually applying. Watching the December 5th meeting, Council Anderson tried to nominate me for an alternate position and was told no by the then chair. I'm not sure why a vote could not have been taken place at that meeting for the 2 alternate positions that were open, as there were 2 qualified candidates that were mentioned and had a lot of discussion on them possibly getting those positions. I also do not understand how I went from very qualified candidate to serve to not even being nominated as an alternate in the December 14th meeting, especially without any discussion on the merits of the applicants, along with the fact that the application that they had not come in, an application had not come in prior to the meetings before, and that application was put forth before others that had been waiting and had theirs already in. I had 100% support of one of the counselors at the December 5th meeting. That seemed to change in the December 14th meeting. They've served with me on zoning board for many, many years, and they know my qualifications, and they know I would be able to do a great job in serving on the planning board. I submitted my complete list of qualifications to all of you in advance of the council, on the advice of the council chair, to show my qualifications that were not really being brought up at that meeting. Both councils, Anderson and Shoup, stated in the meeting that I was a good candidate and they supported me. Councilor Hamill seemed to be set on one applicant, and that seemed to be who he wanted on the zoning board. I mean, from the zoning board to the planning board. To conclude, I'm not sure why there wasn't any movement on my application. I hope the committee can come up with a better procedures and practices going forward. I also hope, once again, I can feel comfortable with knowing all of my elected officials are working on behalf of all of us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody who would like to respond to the comments? No? All right. So, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second,
Any discussion? Before we go too far into discussion, I would like to offer an amendment. And I'm going to read it. So I would like move approval to amend the main motion and waive the posting requirement of chapter 302, section 201 to include additional names as follows. Community Services Rec Advisory Board, reappoint Art Dillon and Roger Chabot as full voting members with terms to expire in 2025. Long Range Planning Committee, reappoint Rick Cheney as a full voting member with a term to expire in 2025. For Planning Board, reappoint Rachel Hendrickson and Rick Meinking as full voting members with terms to expire in 2025. Can I get a second?
second,
All right, discussion? Any discussion? Councilor Seifer?
Mr. Chair, would you, for the public benefit, just kind of give a very general, high-level overview of the process that the council took tonight that kind of led us to our decision-making?
Yes.
I think that would
So-
be helpful.
At the last council meeting, as we were talking about the postings during our councilor committee comments, there was a suggestion raised by one councilor, Councilor Katarina, that I believe that
Mhm.
we should consider bringing this to the full council for deliberation to kind of get through some key candidates that were up for reappointment. And so after consulting with Councilor Shoup and figuring out the best approach, we agreed to share the applications for just the motion that I brought up for those committees to see if we could, do some straw polling to see what the general sentiment of the council was in terms of reappointing existing qualified applicants in some of these key committees to move them forward. So each counselor was given the applications to review, and I did some straw polling over the phone to just get a gut check of what people were thinking. At the time, the consensus through those conversations seemed to be a desire to reappoint existing qualified members to the committee. There were some concerns, so we had an executive session for some candidates that we just left executive session discussing. We invited those candidates that had specific concerns to participate and hear and listen to the council conversation. And I did kind of do some straw polling afterwards to see what the general council sentiment was to advance this amendment. And so that's kind of how we got here. And based on my perception, this was the motion I felt that was appropriate to move forward for council consideration. Thank you, Councilor Seifer, for asking for that. All right, any discussion? Councilor Fuji.
Yeah, no, thank you for bringing this forward, and I look forward to working with the committee to, there's still vacancies. There's other, there's more work to be done, but I think some of the low hanging fruit was reappointing some long serving members of these committees. And I'm glad that you're bringing this forward for consideration now.
Counselor Hamel?
Yeah, I'm in favor of, using corny expressions, but there's another expression that goes something like, the road to disaster is filled with good intentions. And I think that though we were properly motivated to try to change this, I'm not sure the intervention of the council really has made it any easier. We have some close to 35 appointments that have been idling while we try to solve for a handful of different ones. And that has involved very complicated things, including an executive session and exactly how to use that. So I've spent more time agonizing over this than any single issue in the past 4 years I've been on the council. And I will tell you that I'm not convinced that we're making headway, other than the respect that I am looking forward very much to this returning to the committee and letting the committee do its work, and then having the council, in a rare case, try to substitute its judgment for the good work of the committee. So, and I know there've been a lot of criticisms about not getting positions, or I wanted to have this position, or I got my stuff in there first, so you should appoint me. The fact is that these committees have become more popular, and we have more people who are interested in serving on them. And we're trying to balance respecting the depth of experience on the one hand and tenure with trying to appoint people that may be as well, if not better qualified than folks that have served for a long time. That doesn't mean we don't respect their service. It doesn't mean that we don't value what they've contributed. It means that things are changing. And we're doing our best to try to balance those competing interests. And so this has been very painful in a number of respects. We committed to work hard to try to do our best. I am confident that given time and returning to the regular procedure and getting everybody else working on their own committees, rather than feeling that we need to kind of weigh in and pull everybody through a knothole, I'm in favor of, let's get back to our own knitting as quickly as possible.
All right, any other comments? No? All right, so we're voting on the motion as amended, or sorry, we're voting on the amendment. So all of those in favor of the amendment? All right, all those opposed? All right, so those were 5 in favor, 2 opposed. Now we're voting on the main motion, which is the current list of names plus the amended list that we just voted on. Any discussion? Councilor Hamel?
One might ask, why do you vote no on one part and yes on the other? It's a simple matter of math, okay? I'm in favor of moving forward the lion's share of this work that was done on December 5th. And we've lost sight of that somehow. I want to remind people of that. So in view of that, I'm doing that in spite and the issues that I have with the ones that are still open for consideration have more to do with procedural issues and other innovations we're trying to make as a body that I think are well conceived, but not necessarily going to help us. And it's not going to lead to a better outcome. So that's my rationale, and I'm sticking to it. Thanks.
All right. Any other comments? Councilor?
Yeah, I think I would just say that a lot of discussion wasn't put around some of the amendments and recommendations to the amendments that were made tonight. They were just sort of amended, but they weren't discussed at the committee level. And that's all I will say.
All right. So I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor for the motion as amended? All right, that's all those opposed. All right, so 6 in favor, 1 opposed. All right, moving on to the next item, item 10, standing and special committee reports and liaison reports. Is there anybody, has anybody met as a committee yet? No? Okay. All right, I will add, if there's no comments, as Tom mentioned, we have our goals workshop scheduled on January 14th. It is open to the public, but it's on a Saturday, and we're going to start at 9 a.m. As I shared earlier, there are goal areas that each counselor is been assigned to partner and buddy up with to come prepared with some goal ideas like we had with Autumn. That's going to be a great resource to kind of help. So just for visibility for the public, for residential growth management, that's Counselor McGee and myself, because he and I are both working on the GMO right now together as authorized by the council. Sustainability, conservation, and climate change, that's Counselor Scyther and Counselor Shoup. Budget and financial management, that's Counselor Clucci and Counselor Hamel. Housing choice and homelessness, Counselor Katarina and Counselor Hamel. Strategic facilities planning, myself and Counselor Clucci. Traffic and transportation, Counselor McGee and Counselor Shoup. Public engagement and communications, Counselor Scyther and Counselor Katarina. So we're not necessarily going to leave there with goals in all these areas, but the goal is to at least make sure we're checking the boxes and having the conversation. I've had a great conversation with Counselor Hamel where, I think certain things have really dominated our focus as a council. And so trying to figure out how we can balance that as we set goals to make sure we're considering economic, social, environmental issues and trying to have a balance as we tackle issues, I think is really what I'm hoping we can get to and get out of the workshop. So I'm looking forward to hearing what each counselors bring forward. Again, those are the counselors charged with kind of facilitating their aspect of the session, giving ideas. If you have ideas and you're not assigned that and you want to give it to the counselors, feel free to share or come with your own ideas. I'm just trying to make sure that we have some targeted assignments to come prepared so that way we can have a really good conversation and hopefully leave there with some goals. The other part, which again, I totally hear what's been said from both Counselor Hamel and Counselor Shoup in terms of procedures and concerns. And I think we did try something different with this. And again, I think that was really the will of the council to try and bring what we thought was a complicated issue to hopefully some quick solution. But I do think with this in mind, we should think about norms. And so we will be talking about norms as a council. And I think that includes what are our norms when it comes to committees, and specifically with this current example in mind with the appointments committee, when is it appropriate for things to come to skip committee and come to the council? And how do we want to make that agreement together so that we're not just bypassing the committees? Because I fully agree, we need to let the committees do work. And so I think what we did tonight should be done, very sparsely. And I hope that we can come to that consensus in how we want to handle it going forward. So that's another aspect that we'll be trying to tackle, not just goals, but norms for operating, not only with each other, but with the committees, et cetera. So hopefully that'll be a good conversation. And that is all I have. I don't know if there's anything from GMO, Counselor Katarina.
Actually, I have a question through you to Counselor Scyther. You're chair of communications, right? And I know you and I are gonna be doing some, are we having a meeting next Monday?
Not on the 9th. We canceled the meeting on the 9th because Allison's on vacation.
Okay,
And we discussed that back in December, but the three of us do need to pull our calendar for the week of the
okay,
17th.
that's what I was
Yep.
wanted to clarify.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
All right. Any other, or Counselor McGee?
The counselor comment section.
We are,
Thanks.
I will close out item number 10 and moving on to item number 11, council member comments.
Thanks for first shot at that. I just want to say thank you for everyone that puts themselves out there. When you apply for committees, when you serve on these committees, they are sometimes the most thankless, time-consuming job you can possibly imagine. And the only reason people do it is because they're passionate, they care, and they want to make a difference, and they want to help somehow. So that said, I know there are people that want something or want to be a part of a certain specific organization here or board in town, and we've seen some of the most competitive application process here that I think anyone could probably remember. I would say there are still vacancies and there are still other ways to serve your community. So while you don't get your first choice, if you really have that burning desire to bang your head against a wall for 3 years straight, please join a board or a committee, apply for another one. If you don't get the one you want, it is a worthwhile effort. And I make light of the situation, but it is really fulfilling if you do have that public service bone in your body. But for all of you that I know there's a lot of you in the audience that have served, thank you.
Any other comments? No, I just want to echo what you just said and thank everybody who serves today, because it is asking a lot. And I think one of the things that I've been so impressed by with the work Nick and I did mostly through Autumn on the GMO was we engaged every committee and we asked for feedback. And boy, did we get some really great feedback. And I'm excited once we share that more with the public, you know, the knowledge and the expertise we have. And I think going back to Autumn's point, as a council, we really have an opportunity to really leverage these bodies in some ways more effectively than we are today. And so I think that's where trying to make sure our goals, the comp plan, their work is all moving and humming in the same direction so that we're making progress. We have so many people who are willing to like put their effort into it. And I think we can get a lot of good stuff done if we harness all that energy and direct it as a body. So I'm looking forward to engaging the committees and figuring out how do we engage them more in the efforts we're doing. All right, any other comments? No? All right, next item is item 12, adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, it's unanimous. Thank you, everyone.
That's pretty good.